The media is supposed to keep those in power in check, but is that really the case? We know from the oversight report that, for example, the AIVD maintains contacts with journalists. And that is, of course, concerning. They say it's only to gather information, but we can't be sure of that. And that's why we've been asking the minister time and again to make things absolutely clear. So is it or is it not the case that the AIVD, that our intelligence services use journalists to, for example, write articles to influence public opinion? Take a look with me.
Houwelingen has also previously submitted written questions to me about this, and I have answered them as well.
Mr. Van Houwelingen.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. So this is not an answer to my question at all. My question was not whether they can gather information through journalists. My question was, is it possible that the AIVD, as happened in the past with the BVD, uses journalists to influence public opinion here in the Netherlands, for example, by having articles published in newspapers? Is that possible? Does that happen or not? That was the question.
That's why I also referred to the written questions that have been asked about this. By the way, that applies, and Mr. Van Houwelingen knows this very well too. After the summer, there will also be debates about the security services. There will be another discussion of the WIV, but in response to the written questions, I have also indicated that, given the legal obligation of confidentiality, no statements are made that touch upon sources, the current level of knowledge and the modus operandi of the services. Very last, Mr. Van Houwelingen.
Yes, this is really very telling, Chairman. So on this very fundamental question, the minister cannot give an answer. He refuses to answer with a yes or no. That is what we see happening here. So for safety's sake, we must assume, when we talk about influence, that the intelligence services are doing this in the Dutch public debate, Chairman, through over to the minister. That is, of course, very concerning. So we are not getting an answer, not a yes or no answer to this question.
I have indicated what is regulated by law regarding what security services are allowed to do. 1. That is answer 2. I have indicated what, and I have also done so in writing, for what reason the modus operandi of the services is not discussed in the public debate. And Mr. Van Houwelingen also knows very well that there is a committee in this House, namely a CVD, where these topics are discussed.
Yes, the minister again does not give an answer. He refers to written questions. We will put the link below, but there you will see no clear answer is given to our questions there. He says that we are looking for sources, for modus operandi. That is not the case at all. We just want to know whether journalists in general are or are not. Can they or can they not be used by intelligence services to influence public opinion? And we are not getting an answer, and we will comment on that in our second round. Please watch along.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. The Van Houwelingen.
Yes, Chair. Thank you for the answers. Yes, we have talked the whole time about interference from abroad, but still, at the end of the debate, suddenly a completely unexpected rabbit is pulled out of the hat. Because to a very clear question from me, I want to highlight this, Chair, whether it is the case, yes or no. You can answer yes or no to that. Whether our security service, as has happened in the past, as we know with the BVD, uses journalists to, for example, write articles in newspapers, anonymously, Chair, in secret. Whether that happens or not. Of course, we do not want that to happen because we are not in favor of that kind of interference from intelligence services in our public debate. Does the minister succeed? I ask this time and again. Chair, you just can't manage to answer yes or no to that. So then the conclusion must almost be obvious. Because if that weren't the case, he would of course say so here and now in a debate about interference. That the answer is yes, that it does happen. I'm going to ask it once more, Chair, for you. Can the minister just give a clear and straightforward answer to that in a moment? Yes or no? And if that's not the case, Chair, then I conclude that it is happening and we should be concerned about that, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, why are we so worried about this? Because we know from the past that this has happened. The BVD, as is widely known, used to place articles in, for example, NRC to secretly influence public opinion. And we also know, and the media themselves are aware of this too, just how powerful they are in influencing public opinion. And a good example of this is this clip with Nijhuis, the editor-in-chief of Algemeen Dagblad. Please watch along.
And do you also make deals with parties to reach such a moment? Do you negotiate? Do you meet them? Phone calls, spokespersons, advisors?
On a whim I did then. And then I got a call and on a whim I said, listen, we can also make Wilders Prime Minister if you want. So from now on you do it through us. Yeah, maybe I shouldn't reveal this, but this is kind of how it goes.
You see it, you saw it. The media is very powerful, whether we like it or not. And that's why this connection with the AIVD, with the intelligence services, is so concerning. And that's why we want to know exactly how it works, but we just don't get an answer. And you'll see me try again with the minister in the next segment. Just watch along for a moment.
Then the last question for Mr. Van Houwelingen. My answer has been very clear, and the answer to the written question has also been very clear. How Mr. Van Houwelingen chooses to interpret that is up to him. But that doesn't mean the answer wasn't clear, nor the answers to the written questions that were asked. Mr. Van Houwelingen.
Yes, it was a yes or no question, and there is no yes or no answer, so the answer is definitely unclear. But then finally, the follow-up question. The minister cannot answer this question, whether journalists are used by the Secret Service to secretly write articles, for example, in the Dutch media, with a no. Chair, my final question is this. Must the intelligence service have this authority? The minister should be able to answer. Apparently they do have it, otherwise he could simply say no. However, he cannot say they lack that authority. So at the very least, we can conclude that the intelligence services do have this authority.
In my initial response to Mr. Van Houwelingen, I referred to what the services are allowed to do based on the WIV. That is simply the law, and I also indicated that the CTIVD report clearly concluded that the AIVD handles this matter with great restraint. And in addition, I have pointed out that, given the legal obligation of confidentiality, and in protecting sources, I cannot make any statements, not confirming nor denying, about the current level of knowledge and the modus operandi of the services. And Mr. Van Houwelingen knows this very well, because that is never done. No, Mr. Van Houwelingen, not sufficiently, not sufficiently.
Yes, you saw it. It's a pity that the chair did not allow me to ask additional questions. But it's also very concerning because we are asking very clear yes or no questions, and the minister, as you just saw yourself, does not give a clear answer. He cannot answer whether or not it is the case that the AIVD, just as the BVD used to do, influences public opinion. He can't, and in fact doesn't even want to, answer with a simple yes or no. What is truly incomprehensible to me is whether the services have that authority, so we don't get an answer to that. Nor do we get answers to other questions, by the way. For example, we also asked how much data the AIVD collects through cable interception. How much of that is shared with foreign countries? We don't get an answer to that either. We will put all the links below. We have also submitted follow-up questions. Very clear yes or no questions. You can also find those in the links, and we hope that perhaps we will get answers to those because we are keeping a very close eye on this as we are extremely concerned about the connection between the intelligence services and our media.